Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves.
How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your advanced look at all of these collected editions coming out from Marvel Comics this week. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, before getting started, I do want to thank the kind folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of all of these books. All these books are due out in the direct market and book market on October 10th or 11th, depending on where you get your books. So it was a big week for not just Omnis, but also a big week for collected editions. We have two epic collections, one being a reprint, one of my most anticipated epic collections this year. We have some ongoing series, a Marvelverse book, well, this time around it's an X-Verse book, and a Marvel Masterworks, the Remasterworks continuing with Fantastic Four. As always, I put timestamps in the description of the video in case you're just curious about one or two of these titles that you can jump around. And before going any further, don't forget to smash that like button, please. That goes a long way for us here on the channel. All right, let's go ahead and start. We'll start with that X-Verse X-Men book. Okay, here we go with X-Men, X-Verse, X-Villains, so much X's. It's a nice Walter Simonson apocalypse there. These colors here on the characters remind me of the Marvel Flair cards from the 90s. So we've had other X-Verse books. We've had X-Men Wolverine and X-Verse X-Men X-Women. This time around, we're focusing on the villains. And the villains here are Magneto, Sabretooth, Apocalypse, Mr. Sinister getting two stories, even though they are the ones from the kids' comic, which was The Adventures of Spider-Man and The Adventures of X-Men, which were based, of course, on the cartoons from the 90s. And we kick it off with Uncanny X-Men 150 with I, Magneto, probably one of the most, if not the most important Magneto story that completely changes the character and how people viewed him. It shows his sadistic and murderous side, but also shows the side that led him to be this particular character. And the things that he does through here, I mean, they have ramifications all the way up until like X-Men, Adjectiveless X-Men, the second volume, issues 1, 2, and 3. Great stories. Dave Cockerman, of course, Chris Claremont. And then we have a Fred Van Lente story here with Wolverine First Class, which is also taken out of continuity. And this is just Kitty Pryde surprising Wolverine, his birthday, and then Sabretooth comes and crashes his birthday. So there's a reason why Wolverine hates his birthday, and people are about to find out why. There's a flashback there. Again, that one is not in continuity. Probably one of the most interesting stories is this one here from Fall of the Mutants. This is issue number 24 of X Factor. And I say interesting because this one shows a big reveal here of the power of Apocalypse, and talks about how long this guy has been around. This is the first time you find out that he has been known as many different names throughout the history of mankind. And you start wondering, wait a minute, I thought Namor was supposed to be the oldest mutant. Turns out that could have been Apocalypse, and this is when the mystery opens up. And then, of course, the Four Horsemen, and introducing his newest horseman, Death. And you can find out who that is. Such a powerful story. And the last two stories collected in here are Mr. Sinister and the Nasty Boys taking on the X-Men and Spider-Man, protecting this young mutant from being kidnapped by Mr. Sinister. No extras in the back. This book retails for $9.99. It is one of the digest-sized books, meaning the dimensions of the book are smaller than that of trade paperbacks. Kind of give you an idea. Here it is next to this epic collection. But that is X-Men, X-Villains, X-Verse. Or get that backwards. X-Verse, X-Villains. Dang it! X-Verse, X-Men, X-Villains. And we're not done with the X's. Not yet. Because now we're going to be talking about X-Force, Volume 7. Now, if you haven't been keeping up with this series in the Krakoa era, I am going to be talking about some things that happened previously in the previous volumes. Not going into detail as to how they happened, but just a fair warning, a small spoiler going in. Okay, So for those that have read it, we now have a new team lineup here. And we need a new team leader because of things that happened to the Beast in previous issues. And of course, Wolverine ending up leaving the team. So the council's deciding, okay, we need somebody to step in and represent us in the team of X-Force because we still need an X-Force. We need this espionage team. So who's going to lead them? Well, Colossus gets voted in and he's like, I volunteer, but I don't know if I want to be a leader. So now your team lineup is shaken up a little bit. We still have Black Tom Cassidy and Sage and Colossus there. But now we're adding Deadpool and Omega Red and Domino. Omega Red and Domino have been a part of the team for a little bit. But also Wolverine. This is Laura Wolverine since Logan Wolverine is gone. Now, this takes an interesting turn because there's a big story arc in here that involves Kid Omega coming back from the future to get the X-Men to come and help him. This is the Ghost Calendars, part 1. I think there's 4 of them in here. This collects issues 39 through 42 of X-Force. And who he's dealing with is this mechanized version of the Beast. It's the god of all mutants, or so he claims to be. And that's what this particular team is doing. They're in the future, kind of like your story of Days of Future Past, and teaming up with the remaining mutants. No matter how many times we've seen this happen, I still love it. And this is where you find out what Hank McCoy's dark agenda was going to be, where it's leading up to, or I guess a possible future where it could lead to. This book is $15.99 and it has 112 pages. Let's check out the extras, which are the covers here. Textless covers. And then you also have variant covers. That's an awesome one right there. That's James Stokoe. And some in thumbnail size. But that is X-Force, Volume 7. Star Wars Darth Vader by Greg Pak, Volume 7, Unbound Force. This is another one, if you haven't been keeping up with this series, and I know that it takes place between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, so most of you probably already know the outcome of a lot of these things. But, you know, the journey there is just as exciting. So if you haven't been keeping up with this, by all means, jump to the next book, which will be New Mutants. But if you don't care about spoilers or you've been keeping up with this, let's talk about this book. All right. So in the previous volumes, you know, we've had the War of the Bounty Hunters, and we had the Crimson Reign storyline, and we're about to get into another story arc towards the ending of this one that leads into the Dark Droid saga. But this is Unbound Force. I love the way they catch you up. By the way, how did they not choose that as the cover? That is absolutely stunning. I love that cover. Just beautiful. I would own that as a print. Here gives you a little bit of what happened in the previous volumes. And without going into spoilers, what happened is that Darth Vader is losing control of his force powers. Like, he cannot control his ship. He can't control his powers. They're out of control. He gets sucked out into space because that's the only way that Commander Sabe can figure out how to help him. And this is a really awesome story. Now, if you don't know who Sabe is, she was one of Padme's, I don't want to call her bootlegs, but decoys. Almost called her a bootleg. Hell no, she's a cool character. So she appeared in this particular run of Darth Vader. She looks like Padme, and of course, like I said, she's a decoy, so she's familiar with Padme and Anakin Skywalker. And she is one of the only, like a handful of people in the galaxy that know, during this time, who Darth Vader is. She knows that he is Anakin Skywalker. So they go to a seclusive planet where she thinks she's leading him there so he can learn to control his dark powers again, his dark force. However, there's a little bit of a twist where he tells her that he's not there to learn how to control his powers. The lesson is for her, and she has to choose whether it's suffering or power. And oh man, it's such an awesome freaking moment when she figures out that, oh my gosh, it's me that has to learn, and I have to choose the light side or the dark side. And you can find out exactly how this ends. This is all written by Greg Pak, and Adam Gorham is the artist on this. And there's another story that I don't want to spoil too much because, like I said, it leads into the Dark Droid saga, but it is Target Dr. Aphra. So they are reunited with Ochi here and a couple of psychobots. But the most interesting thing that's collected in here, for some reason, is Darth Vader issue number 3, which is the first appearance of Dr. Aphra. So this collects Darth Vader, the new series of 2022, 33 to 36, and then the 2015 Darth Vader issue number 3, which again introduces the readers to the character of Dr. Aphra. In the back is where you're going to find variant covers. So these are variant covers back here. That's another awesome one right there. Oh, I love that. That's great. 3 of 4 vintage homage variants. That's freaking awesome. Yeah, Sabe has grown on me. She's become a really interesting character. You know, different enough from Padme. The book retails for $15.99, and it has 128 pages. The New Mutants Epic Collection Volume 2, The Demon Bear Saga. Now, this is the 3rd printing of this book. The first one sold out like within a day. The second printing stuck around for a little bit. This time around, this is the 3rd printing, so it'll have a smaller print run than the second printing did. So please keep that in mind in case you are wondering about this one or you wanted to check it out and you missed out on it the first time around. This collects issues 13 through 31 of New Mutants, and it also has the very first annual. And this, of course, is probably known as the Bill Sienkiewicz era of New Mutants to everybody. It's not just the Demon Bear stuff. He does a lot of things in here. Chris Claremont, of course, writing the entire book, and you have kicking it off with this New Mutants issue right here with Sal Buscema and Tom Mandrake. Tom Mandrake actually ends up being a penciler for a little bit. I've always been a fan of this cover by Blevins. Forget it, Kitty. You're not good enough for us X-Babies, because Kitty Pryde did not want to join the New Mutants. No matter how many times Professor Xavier was like, hey, sorry, you're off the team. Professor Xavier's a jerk. That's right. But you gotta understand where he's coming from, right? He's a father figure. He's got to take care of his kids. So you're going to see the change in tone in the story. It's going to be really interesting if you're reading these for the first time. There's stories in here that focus on Amara. There's stories in here that focus on Ileana and her powers, how she's changed since the Magic miniseries and then ends up joining the team. And this is really interesting because for some reason it doesn't collect Uncanny X-Men 180, which I think is pretty important in the relationship between Kitty Pryde and that of Doug. And it's revealed Doug is a mutant in that particular issue. We have the White Queen coming in with her new Hellions and recruiting Kitty Pryde to join them. And there's huge battles here. You get to see classic Hellions and then new Hellions back. So you have like Taro and you have Warpath there, Jetstream. So you get to see older characters and then new characters. And then everything changes with New Mutants number 18. Now, Bill Sienkiewicz did do the cover of New Mutants 17, which is just Jetstream and Cannonball there. But here's where he takes over. And he kicks it off with this dark saga. It's like Chris Claremont knew the type of writer, or knew the type of story to tell when you had Bill Sienkiewicz on as the artist. And you start off with this horrible nightmare that Rachel is having about Professor Xavier getting killed, leading to her future, her being scared to approach him and his mutant students because she doesn't know exactly how to do that. Meanwhile, Moonstar's having these nightmares about this bear that keeps plaguing her. And are they really nightmares because they're able to, or the bear is actually able to do physical damage on her? You have the introduction of Tom Corsi and Sharon Friedlander, who, in a very interesting, tropey, Claremont way, he changes they become Native American, which is really interesting that he did that, because later on, of course, then we had like Psylocke becoming Asian from like British, right? Then, of course, that was retcon. This one here always holds a special place in my heart, because this is when I decided I need to buy these New Mutants, and it kicked off with this. Now, Warlock had appeared previously in a cameo, but this is his first like full-blown appearance, and oh, it's so awesome. And, you know, it's the 80s, so you get a lot of, like, 80s pop culture references, all the girls crushing on Tom Selleck, and I'm sure if you're a new reader, you're like, who's Tom Selleck? And if you grew up in the 90s, you're like, oh, Tom Selleck, you know, the old guy from Friends. Everybody in the 80s is like, that's Magnum PI, where the girl's crushing on Michael Jackson, while the boys, because they're having a slumber party, because, you know, they're trying to become friends with just people without mutant powers. Oh man, this one holds such a special place in my heart. And I thought all of New Mutants was going to be like this, like a dark, funny, lovable story, but they're not. Then we have the annual right here, which introduces us to Lila Cheney, and also I think this is the first appearance of Strong Guy too. And those characters get to come back. I've always been a fan of this Disney-like cover that he did. This is a story that Rain is writing about. And it's done with this beautiful, like, yeah, Disney-like style. Big fan of that. The Hellfire Club making their moves behind the scenes. Magneto now in charge of the New Mutants. We have the Cloak and Dagger story here. And then the introduction of David Haller, which is Legion. And I remember when I got these, because I was getting these in back issues, I thought the design of Legion was so creepy. Like, there was no soul in this person. And he has split personalities, right? Like, each one has its own power. Like, you have a pyrokinetic. It's one of them. And, of course, he's become such a much more popular character because after this storyline, honestly, he wasn't around for a long time. We had him in the Muir Island saga. And then I think the biggest thing probably most people remember him from was the Legion Quest storyline that led into the Age of Apocalypse. But then, you know, Cy Spurrier has just been killing it since his X-Men Legacy Legion story, and then utilizing him in the Krakoa era. We have the Gladiator story right here. These are some of the characters that are back from the annual, including Strong Guy and Lila Cheney. And also Horseface right there, though that's not the best name for him. And we have the return of a character from the New Mutants team that had been gone for a long time, and they don't believe it. So the next issue kicks off the search for this particular character. We have some character designs right here by Bob McLeod. And, oh, these are pinups here telling you the characters' powers. Always been a fan of that ad right there. Don't call them X-Babies anymore. And then, yeah, Bill Sienkiewicz original art and painted artwork. This is the afterword by Bill Sienkiewicz, and then the interview with Bill Sienkiewicz here. This book retails for $49.99, and it has 522 pages. And it has come to be that part of the video where I remind people to smash that like button, but also, of course, to check out all the spines of the books coming out this week. Alright, let's continue with the overviews. Ghost Rider, Danny Ketch, Epic Collection, Volume 1, Vengeance Reborn. One of my most anticipated books of the year. And it is finally here. And you're probably wondering, how the hell did I not give my seal of approval to New Mutants? And I love that. I love Bill Sienkiewicz taking over the book, changing the tone. You know, my New Mutants, I still think, like, the era that I got into New Mutants didn't happen until a little bit later after that. I actually got into it with Louise Simonson, and I know there's a big shift in the tone of the book when she comes on board, but that was the New Mutants I grew up with. Anyway, long story short, hell yes, this is getting the seal of approval. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh, Ghost Rider. You epic people beat us to it. You beat the omnibus people. How did that happen? Oh well, you got one up on us. But this is it. This kicks off the new era of Ghost Rider. Now the big question is, do you need to have read anything from the past? No, absolutely not. I did not. And I got everything from this book. And I got into it because of X Factor. And I'll explain why, actually, in these very pages. Here's your writer, Howard Mackey, Roy Thomas, Dan Thomas, that's the crossover with Doctor Strange right there. Javier Saltares, who's the co-creator of this particular Ghost Rider, Mark Teixeira, and then Mark Bagley. Although I think it's Mark Teixeira is what people have told me. But he goes by Tex. We're just going to call him Tex. Larry Stroman, which Tex inks his stuff, and it looks brilliant. And then Chris Marion, who did the artwork for Doctor Strange. And we kick it off with this first issue. This introduces us to the character of Danny Ketch and the new spirit of vengeance. Now, Ghost Rider, the whole Johnny Blaze thing, being taken over by Zarathos, that happened a long time ago before this started. This is the 1990 series. And we have a new cast of characters. Now, we see Danny Ketch here with his sister, Barb, and they're at the cemetery late at night. They get attacked by a gang. And I don't mean to laugh, but oh my gosh. It really didn't feel safe in the 90s if you read comics. I think every comic book that I was reading had a gang, and I'm like, man, how do people go out after dark? They're going to be attacked by gang members. Like, no matter what I was reading, it was always a gang that was after these innocent people for just minding their own business, beating them up, taking their money, kidnapping their kids, whatever it is. There was always a gang involved. Anyway, back to this. Might have been a 90s trope. We are introduced to this character right here. This is Deathwatch, and they're after these canisters. And one of the canisters goes missing. The gang members had taken it. And through this, Barb, who's a photographer, wants to capture some of the stuff that's going on. And what ends up happening is she gets shot through the chest by this harpoon, this arrow. And Danny's like, what? Oh my gosh, my sister. So he takes her to a junkyard, which is where you take somebody that's hurt. And he finds something glowing in this junkyard. And what it turns out to be is this gas cap of a motorcycle. When he touches the gas cap, he lets out this bolt of light and becomes the spirit of vengeance, Ghost Rider. And this right here, this image is probably the most iconic, like, version of Ghost Rider. Even though he's not the original Ghost Rider or Phantom Rider, this is, I think, what most people think of when they think of Ghost Rider. The wheels on fire. They're not, I'm sorry, they're fire wheels. They're not wheels on fire. They're actual fire wheels. And it's such an awesome bike. So he beats the crap out of these people, Deathwatch's people, and takes his sister to the hospital, turning back to Danny Ketch. His sister's put into a coma, and he doesn't know exactly what's going on. And then it turns out that the Kingpin also wants these canisters, these MacGuffins, which, of course, this is the 90s, so it had some kind of venomous containers that they were going to let out into the world because that's what people did back then. But everybody wants their hands on it, so now it's up to Ghost Rider to stop these people. And that's pretty much the setup of the first issue. So you're introduced to a brand new character. He's the Spirit of Vengeance. Is it Zarathos? Is it still the same demon that took over Johnny Blaze in the original series? Does it have any ties to Mephisto? I won't say anything because right now he touched the gas cap of that motorcycle and that's how he's able to turn. Later on you find out, could it have been anybody that touched that gas cap? Or is there a relationship between that and, of course, Johnny Blaze's Zarathos? So through here you get to meet a new villain named Blackout who has the power to turn the lights off, but he's a creepy character. Like, he's murdering people left and right. Deathwatch, for some reason, doesn't really... maybe it's visually he looks really cool, or I thought he did. I think he actually backs off a little bit when it comes to, like, hurting kids, whereas Blackout doesn't care about ripping anybody's throat. He's all about murdering, and that's what he gets out of it. So those are kind of like his first two big villains. Then you get to see him fight Mr. Hyde. You get to see him fight other classic villains from the Marvel Universe, like the Scarecrow. He has a team up with the Punisher because at first, they don't get along really well. The Punisher's coming to hunt down the Ghost Rider because he sees him as a demon. And he rides his own bike, but they both have to team up for the fight against Flag Smasher. This is a cover by Jim Lee, who will later also be drawing Ghost Rider in a 4-part crossover with the X-Men. Now, Saltades is doing the main artwork through here. But in issue number 7, we do have Text doing the full issue. So he's doing the penciling and inks here, which is really nice to see because he's one hell of an artist, and he's who I'm sure a lot of people connect with Ghost Rider, even though he was just the inker throughout the very first year and a half or so. This is the issue that I got that I'm like, well, I gotta pick up Ghost Rider. This guy's cool. And then there was also the new Fantastic Four, and I'm like, okay, this is way too cool of a character. So this is Ghost Rider number 9, and this showcases X-Factor. Somebody's going around kidnapping kids, and X-Factor's worried about Nathan Christopher Summers, so they go out and try to help out, and they have a misunderstanding, and then later a team up that's Pixie, not to be confused with the X-Men's Pixie. Also collected in here is Marvel Comics Presents Wolverine and Ghost Rider. So I haven't even talked about what's collected in here. Collected in here are the first 12 issues of Ghost Rider. Then you have Mark Spector, Moon Knight number 25, the Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme number 28, and then material from Marvel Comics Presents 64 to 71, which is the whole team up between Ghost Rider and Wolverine against Deathwatch and his gang. And these are all inked by Harry Candelario, with Tex doing the artwork. But those are also collected in the Wolverine Omnibus. Then we have the team up with Moon Knight here, also written by Howard Mackie, fighting against, I believe that character's name is Plasma, if I'm not mistaken. And then you go back to the regular series, where Danny Ketch he's lost something really important to him. And you also get to meet some more of his supporting cast, like Stacy, his girlfriend. We have the introduction of this character named Zodiac, who's dressed all in green and wants to summon demons, because that's what bad guys did back then, summoning demons. You knew the demons were all going to work for you. And what's really interesting about that particular story is that it ties into the Inferno, X-Men Inferno, the original Inferno. Then we begin the crossover with Doctor Strange, and it wraps up with this particular issue of Doctor Strange, number 28. And that's really interesting because this was a direct market. You could only get it through comic book stores or if you had a subscription. So there was no newsstand version of this issue. So if you wanted to continue reading this particular issue, I believe later on they did do a reprint of it as a one-shot. Then you get the Marvel Age interview talking about Ghost Rider, who he is. Ooh, this is another Marvel Age stuff. House ads, trade paperback of Ghost Rider Resurrected, which collects, I think, the first 6 issues or so, and then pinups for that trade paperback. The second printing, because it was hot, and then Doctor Strange and Ghost. This is the one shot, yeah. So this collected Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme number 28. And trade paperbacks for Acts of Vengeance, which I think I actually had that. And wow, original art by Jim Lee. The book has 464 pages, and it retails for $44.99. Last but certainly not least is the Marvel Masterworks. This is the Fantastic Four, the latest printing of Volume 2. So for the people that missed out on them and they started getting Masterworks later on, because these have been around since the late 80s, here's your chance to pick these up. Both this and the direct market cover will be available this week. And this collects the issues 11 through 20 of the Fantastic Four, as well as annual number 1. And written by Stan Lee, Jack Kirby doing the penciling, Dick Ayers, Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby, and Saul Brodsky doing the inks. And then the lettering by Art Simek, Ray Holloway, and Sam Rosen. And then, of course, the colorist remained uncredited back then. Here's your table of contents right here. An introduction. This is a really interesting introduction about the Fantastic Four from Stan Lee. And I find it interesting because this is written in 1988, right? And the Fantastic Four came out in 1961. So he's not that far from when it was, a lot closer than now, right? It's still a little further away than the 60s. But it's really cool to see how he was thinking back then, of how he knew the tone of the book was changing. In here, you're going to see the introduction of characters like the Impossible Man. And I'm just going to come out and say it. That's one of my least favorite characters. And it's interesting when you read the introduction, I wasn't alone. Like, even as a kid, I never liked the Impossible Man. I just seemed like to think that he was just ridiculous and got on my nerves a lot. Sorry, Stan. Sorry, Jack. Not for me. You have the fight with the Hulk here. So this is the first team up with the Hulk, or rather the misunderstandings with the Hulk. And then you also have the introduction of the Red Ghost through here. And also in this appears one of the most important characters in the entire Marvel Universe. And I'm not talking about the Red Ghost, but I'm talking about the Watcher. And the Watcher will come back to play in this very volume, and also later on, of course, with the coming of Galactus. And you also have Namor almost kind of being like the 5th member and then claiming war on all humanity, because that's just what Namor does. You have the Mad Thinker and the Awesome Android making their first appearance through here. Pinups galore. Ant-Man teaming up with them against the fight with Doctor Doom, because Doctor Doom makes a comeback. And that, you can tell, is definitely one of Stan's and Jack's favorite villain to write and draw. And you also have Rama Tut that makes an appearance through here. And he plays a big important part later on, of course, in the pages of the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, with Immortus and Kang the Conqueror. The Super Skrull makes an appearance here, because what's more fierce than fighting Skrulls? Well, somebody that has all the abilities of the Fantastic Four. This is the Submariner, where he goes to war with the entire human race, because that's just what Namor did back then. Misunderstandings, doesn't matter, whatever. The pinups here, talking about the different characters that appear through here, their first appearances. And I think somebody in my comments section corrected me that they were doing first appearance within the pages of the Fantastic Four, not in the Marvel Comics. So thank you so much for that, because I thought it was just a little no prize I won. And this is the Fantastic Four meets Spider-Man. It's just a couple of pages here where they are meeting each other for the first time. There's the Rama Tut appearance here. And I've talked about these stories in my overview of the first omnibus. And here's the Molecule Man making his first appearance, and then the Watcher making a return with this really jaundiced skin there that he's got going for him. And what we have here are the extras, and I was told to please focus more on the extras for the Remasterworks, and I will do that. So you have original art pages, and those have been previously collected. This is from Fantastic Four number 13, the first appearance of the Watcher there, with inks by Steve Ditko. And then you have some house ads all the way back here. Original pages, again, Jack Kirby, Dick Ayers. This issue is the unused Fantastic Four page. Was intended for, isn't conclusively known, most likely issues 17 or 23. It was used as a tryout for an unknown inker. Man, they were just giving pages away. That's crazy. More original art and original covers here. Unused cover pencils and unused cover pencil over here by Kirby and Ayers. And these were the reprints of those classic stories. This is a reprint of, I believe, just the Submariner versus from the annual with added pages from John Byrne. I don't know if that was in the original printing of this. And then the pinups by John Byrne. And I know this wasn't in the original printing. The book has 360. This book has 336 pages and retails for $75. And here's your original page art of the Baxter Building, the biographies on the creators, and then the back of the book. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you are picking up. Are you going the Remasterworks route? Are you sticking with Epics? Are you getting the Omnis or Fantastic Four? And what other titles do you want to see remasterworked? I'd love to know all those answers in the comments section below. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. And that's it, everyone. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.